Welcome to Josh's House of Nerd podcast.
Hello, Nerd Nation. I'm Josh, and I welcome you to the podcast. Grab a cold evergreen goblet of blue milk and make yourself comfortable here at my House of Nerd. Now, for tonight's sponsor, tonight's podcast is brought to you by Tulsi Town Ice Cream, the ice cream of really creepy clowns. If you like creepy clowns, then go get your ice cream at Tulsi Town Ice Cream. Open day or night, if you dare. Now on to the podcast. Today on the podcast, we are talking on the topic of psychological thrillers. And this week we are talking about John's pick. It's Crit's pick. I wrote it wrong. I did it again.
Wait,
Crit's. I didn't change my dialogue. Crit's pick, the 2011 movie. Whoa. You know what I'm doing? I'm on my old one.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm looking at the paragraph, and it.
What I did was I wrote down the stuff that I would. I wrote down the. I wrote down the podcast as that introduction on the old one, and then just kept going with it. All right, here we go. The Tulsi Town thing. Anyways, all right, here we go.
All right.
I did write down the right thing. I was just on the wrong one. All right.
Okay.
Today on the podcast, we're on the topic for the month, which is psychological thrillers. And this week we are talking about Crit's pick, the 2020 Netflix movie, I'm Thinking About Ending Things, directed by Charlie Kaufman. And it's about a young woman that contemplates ending the 7-week relationship with her boyfriend, Jake, while on a trip to meet his parents at their farm, starring Jessie Buckley, Jesse Plemons, Toni Collette, and David Thewles. Let's talk about this movie, guys. What did we all think about it?
Well, when it's coming from the director of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, I had really high expectations coming into it. To be honest, I was.
Does this guy not make weird movies? Also, John Malkovich.
He didn't direct those.
That
though.
too.
He only wrote them.
Yeah, he only wrote those ones, so not
this
really
one he actually directed.
Yeah. He's only directed like 4 things, including this one. So
I didn't realize he didn't direct those other ones.
I apologize. I should
Okay.
have mentioned right. But when being involved, I guess heavily in those stories, I came into this expecting quite a lot, and so was. I don't know where I fall on it yet. Like it's still unpacking enough to be. Is this going to be a being John Malkovich in my head of like, holy cow, this movie is crazy good and I love it and I'll rewatch it, or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind where it's crazy good, I'll never watch it again because I never want to feel that way again in my life.
Right.
I never want to think about that again. It's still kind of unpacking it there. So I don't know. Like I came into it with really high expectations. And it's not an immediate, my expectations were completely lost and horrible, but I don't know if like my expectations were really fully met yet. I mean, and not like literally don't know, not a saying this and it's not really getting good. It's like, man, I don't know. Like it's still unpacking, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Like I'm actually, since it was my pick and everything, I'm super interested in how both of you like, just your reactions to the movie, like not even really like what you think it's about or anything else like that. Obviously we'll get into it, but like I'm super interested.
Do you want our like gut reaction when we first start watching or throughout it?
Yeah, I mean your first watch, you know, this is, I will spoil mine a little bit by saying this is the type of movie you need to watch more than once if you really kind of want to know if you really like the story. I think the first watch doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost too dense, I would say. But anyway, like I said, I don't want to weight the scale too much here, but yeah, I'd love to know what you guys thought about it.
So my first thoughts was it's like looking at man, I don't know if you've ever looked at a Jackson Pollock painting.
Sure.
To me, it's looking
not my favorite painter, but yeah.
No, but it's like looking at a Jackson Pollock painting. The first time you look at it, and as you look at it, it's so dense and there's so much stuff. And you're like, where do I even start trying to make sense of this? And so what you do is you find patterns and you kind of, you kind of look at the themes around it. And so that was my reaction to this movie, was looking at a Jackson Pollock painting of,
Like from
holy
his
cow, this is so dense.
from his like giant
And
canvas era or something, because I think he's got Pollock has several different eras in his paintings.
yeah, he does.
Yeah, so
It would
it's
be
more famous stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
For example, a good one would be Number 5.
Okay.
If
that's pretty
you've
famous.
seen that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like one of his most famous pieces. So
Right.
if you know Jackson Pollock, hopefully you know Number 5.
Which the father in this movie would hate.
Yeah, absolutely. But that was my reaction. Is like, oh, this is Jackson Pollock in movie form, kind of.
I could see that. Yeah, interesting. Well, Josh,
Yeah. Yes.
What'd you feel, man?
May I help you?
This is a movie you haven't seen and not
Yep.
one you'd probably pick.
That's right.
So like, give it to me, man. What'd you think?
I wanted to go in. I went in wanting to like this.
It's okay. You don't.
Okay.
I told you in the last podcast when we picked. I said
you'd be surprised if I liked it.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if you liked it.
I went in very neutral on this. I didn't want to I didn't look into it. I didn't want to know about it. I wanted to kind of get a kind of a fresh idea of it. I really wanted to truly test to see if I would like it. And I would have to say that I didn't hate it.
Okay.
It's
okay to hate it. It's okay to not like the movie.
I don't like it.
Okay.
My feelings going into it, but there was aspects I did like of it.
Sure.
There's I hate saying that in like a broad stroke of a comment, because there are many things about it, but I gotta be honest with you. I think you've zoned into a kind of a genre that Josh doesn't like, which is very, very few genres. But this might be one of them.
Would it be more fair to say that you didn't enjoy it?
I didn't enjoy it. I just didn't.
So you don't have to say you don't like it. You just say
yes,
you didn't enjoy it.
Yes, I didn't enjoy it. I mean, I didn't. It was weird, and I didn't. Wasn't following. I just didn't get some of the interactions, and I thought the interaction in the car was good, but I got to be honest, some of those interactions in those environments went on too long. I thought the house piece was like, it was all just, it felt just so off-putting most of the time. I was just kind of like, but then I started feeling like, oh my heck, how much longer is this going to go?
Yeah, fair enough.
How much longer am I going to be tortured? Even at one point, I'm like, I said to my wife, I'm like, why does John and Crick keep doing this to me? And stuff. But I've done that to you guys.
No, I think it's great because John's the one that always threatens to find movies that we wouldn't, that us two wouldn't like.
Right.
And I'm always the one that finds the movie that you don't like.
I know. How does that happen?
Because I'm actually the villain in this story. I don't know if you know that.
So, I mean, there was like some creepy, almost like horror things, aspects to this movie that were kind of cool, but in the whole idea of it, I mean, I did do some research on it and to understand a little bit more, but it still didn't make me like it more.
Sure.
Even though I understood a little bit better about the whole thing. I mean, the whole Oklahoma thing was just weird, man. Like, especially at the very end. And
all right.
And we'll talk about it. But anyways, here's one thing that I'm going to say to this.
Okay.
I think the direction was done very well. I think the house scenes were shot like the whole thing where they were it kept changing, and you saw different aspects of their lives. I just thought that was all interlaced really, really well, even though I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Fair enough.
I thought the acting, Toni Collette, once again, dude, knocks it out of the freaking park.
And David
she
Thewlis,
is, oh gosh, she's a good actress. Yeah. And she plays such weird, sometimes crazy one, especially like in this one. And yet she's just spot on, man.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that's my overall feeling of it. Maybe it's one of those ones where like, I wish I could get my 2 hours back, but I'm not going to go that far.
Okay. Fair enough.
Because of the cinematography and a lot of the different aspects that I just stated.
Yeah, but it was still a chore to get through.
It was. I'm not going to hold back or pull any punches. It was a chore for
Good.
me.
Yeah, no, I don't. I want your honest opinion on it.
Yeah. This one was definitely a little bit of a chore for me. But that's okay. You know what? These are types of movies that I still want to see. I still want it because it helps me to grow as a movie watcher. Helps me to grow in my genres. Because, like you said earlier, I knew what this movie was probably going to be like, and I wouldn't have watched it. And if I'd have known it was of the guy that did John Malkovich,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like that movie either.
Right. Okay.
And so I could have told you right off the bat if I knew that that's just the same guy that wrote this, I wouldn't have liked it probably. and that's hard to say because a lot of directors are hit and miss with me. This one is almost nailed it every single time. And I haven't seen the Eternal Sunshine one.
Yeah.
So I can't comment on that one.
Okay.
So
that one will screw you up.
All right. So, John,
I saw the beginning of it.
This was the first time you saw
through
this movie, and you're saying that you don't know how you feel about it yet.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay. Cool. All right. So, so what do you think the movie was about, Josh? Like, what do you think the movie was about? Like, what did you get from it? Like, what's the story?
in the beginning, I thought it was just a breakup story.
Yeah.
And then it morphed. And then once we got to the house part, I started he was in all the different scenes and all the different kind of aspects of his parents' life in different parts of the thing. And I started to think maybe it's a time travel movie.
Okay.
What was the question again?
What do you think the movie's about? Like, what's its story? What's its goal? What's it trying to say?
I eventually came to think, because I started to recognize pretty early on that he was probably the janitor, that this has something to do with we were seeing possibly flashbacks of his life, which isn't completely accurate. I've come to find out. I did some research on this movie.
Some research is going to spoil this conversation a little bit.
But I thought that it was maybe things in his life that he had experienced that he at an older age, one was just reminiscing of as his mind was starting to go.
Okay.
So, because I said, I caught on to the janitor thing really early.
Right. Well,
I think it's pretty obvious for you.
Yeah. They make some really broad gestures. Yeah.
It's like here's this old guy. Who do you think it could be?
I mean, they throw you off in like the first 2 minutes, but then after that, you're pretty well established. Like,
yeah, I agree.
Both Jake is the janitor, so like you're just like, okay, you got that part, but then it's just like trying to figure out what the movie is.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, I got this part. Is this the twist? Am I in for an hour and 55 minutes of that's all there is to this?
So for me coming into it and coming out of it, I feel like it's an exploration into life and an exploration into the snap judgments we make about people who are interesting or different or who are weird.
Also kind of an external.
Kind of an external. So it's we assign labels. We see only a very, very small part. But this is what's really going on inside their head. And that's what I get. That's what I see this movie being. Is like, no, this is what's really going on inside that person that you call weird's head. Like, this is how they perceive the world. This is how their memories are. This is, their hopes and dreams type deal.
Yeah,
like,
I can totally
this
see
is
that.
what's really going on.
Yeah, I took it the exact opposite in that it's an internal story. It's his story told from his perspective totally. Like no one else's perspective is in the movie at all. Like that's the thing is like no one else exists in that story but him. Except for the couple of times where he's walking, just a couple of flashbacks of him walking and looking at, but even those are still memories of his. They're not actual real time.
No, but that is what I'm saying. Like I'm saying the same kind of thing. It's all internal.
But you're looking.
But the point of the movie.
Well, you're saying the point of the movie is external. That we are not. We judge these characters, and this is what their internal state is like. And I'm saying, the movie puts me as that character, and it's internal. Like the last thing I wrote on this is the entire movie is him justifying his choice to commit suicide. Like that's to me, that's the entire movie is he is justifying his choice. and that he's been down this road many times, and we're seeing the last time where he's actually giving in to it. That was my take on it.
That's an interesting
And
take, and I can see that now that you bring it to light.
that's just my view on it. Yeah.
I can see that view now that you say it. I don't know if I would have totally got that from him. I just thought like at the very end where he was in his truck, mostly naked.
Well, that's hypothermia,
where he
right?
just died. I didn't realize that was probably a suicide.
Yeah, because that's the last. What's that? Extreme hypothermia. People tend to take off their clothes because they think they're hot when they're actually really, really cold.
Yeah.
So like that, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, it's taking at it from an external point of view where you're like, okay, the movie is telling us, the audience, to look at what this movie's world has set up to be a weird person, a person that is, the rest of society's like they're not necessarily successful or I don't know, something like that, and saying, hey,
Right.
audience, check this out. This person is worth, empathizing with. Whereas I took it more as the movie, you're already empathizing with him, and then it's exploring his justifications on his final choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a super hard time empathizing with him, to be brutally honest. Like,
I know, and I have a theory why, but go ahead.
Well, no.
I would agree with you, John.
Part of me is because of the Black Mirror episode he plays in.
Oh, okay. Mixing me.
Yeah, Jesse Plemons.
Yeah.
He plays in Black Mirror. He plays as that one captain, and it's just like he's just a horrible person.
Right.
But at the same time, that Black Mirror episode, he's kind of the same kind of person where he's, awkward and all that jazz, and you can see what a really bad person he actually is. And so I kind of came into that, and some of it felt very similar to his role in that. And so there's where it was hard to empathize at first, because I'm remembering him as this horrible person with some of these same, and then some of it's just his acting too. Yeah, same mannerisms and stuff like that.
What's funny is I saw him in a Jungle Cruise the night before, playing a Nazi, or a king that's kind of Nazi-like.
Yeah.
And then it became harder to empathize, because if this is how he perceives the world, like the perceptions of people is like the lack of, to me it's almost a lack of free will, like
maybe.
So that drive, when he's driving her home, and he's like, you drank too much, right. And then they go off on some tangent, but it's just like, okay, that, and then the argument in the
okay, that's interesting. Let's stay there for a second, because to me, she is him. It's just another aspect of his mind. Like, he's actually arguing with himself when he's saying you drink too much. He's actually telling himself you drink too much. Like, he's not berating his girlfriend, because they were never a couple. She's literally a person.
She's literally that one in the bar that he missed.
Yeah, she saw in a bar. They never had a relationship, but he's created this fantasy at the end of his life where
and see, I didn't
represents a different person, a different
I didn't go that
own self. Yeah,
I didn't go that deep. I just I kept it as a, here's a persona that I'm controlling all of it.
Yeah.
And my need to make this persona less than myself in this story in some way. So that's where that empathy kind of came in.
Can I ask a question about this argument?
Of course. Yeah.
It's not an argument.
Well,
argument?
They're arguing, she's pissed off because they're going towards the school because he wants to dump that ice cream off.
Yeah.
Okay. But then you look in the dumpster where he dumps the ice cream off.
Yep.
And it's completely full of ice cream.
Yeah. So
do you think it's like
on that, but what do you have? Yeah.
Well, my thoughts on it were that maybe that was an idea of that. This is something that he's gone over and over in his head about, right. That he can't, it's like repetitive. And that's like in his mind, he hasn't dumped the garbage. It's just filled up because of the many, many times throughout his entire life that he has retreaded this.
Yeah.
That was one thought.
Yeah. That's one possibility. And the other possibility I thought is that it's more metaphorical.
Okay.
He has gotten to this same point. So if you imagine that every single time he's basically woken up depressed and went to work and kind of started examining his life, because he's certainly the type of character that does have, if not a toxic, but at least a very active internal life, right? Like he's into poetry and painting and
Mm-hmm.
physics and all these things that he's kind of into, and they're all things he could have possibly been, but he ends up being a janitor at a school. And so it's like, so to me, I always took it as kind of a metaphor of, he has been down this road thinking about his suicide many, many times. And this is where he usually gets to and then turns away from it.
Oh.
He'll dump the ice cream, and then he'll not go through with the final thing, following the pig into the into the school, right? And he'll stop there. So he's caught up to, but of course we're seeing the final trip, you know, where he's done all this ruminating on his past and his possibilities and his possible relationships. And it's really, like, to me, it's like just this kind of epic self-loathing, right? Like he kind of sees his potential, but at the same time thinks he's not worth anything, right? And then looks
Mhm.
at and that's why I think it's not like a uh I it was something John said earlier, that kind of keyed me into that, and I wanted to talk about it, about how the movie felt at the end. I don't remember now, so I'll just keep going. But yeah, so it's that's why I was kind of took it as like he's been to this point so many times, in this idea of ending things, but he's never gone through with it, and this is the final time.
That's interesting. It's interesting. One thing can kind of mean different things to people.
Yeah, I mean, this is
Similar,
kind of
but
a high budget art house movie. It's more
very much
about feeling and emotion, than it is about like explicit story, right? Like what's happening.
nostalgia. Yeah.
Yeah, well, sort of. Yeah, it's like what's happening on screen isn't exactly what's happening in the story.
Yes, that's very clear.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
truth.
it's the only way to that's why they do so many surreal things in this movie, especially
Mhm.
around the house and stuff like that. Um, the ballet dance at the end, everybody in
Oh,
the theater,
jeez,
all that stuff.
that was so weird, dude. The
Uh,
whole ballet dance at the
I'm
end,
not much.
and
Yeah.
it's. I guess I read a little bit about it. That's actually not in the original book. That was
No.
Kaufman's kind of addition to the movie. This kind of idea of because he had been around in that school for so long, that had been almost like drilled into his mind, and it was almost sentimental in a way, but also like he kind of
Well, yeah.
almost hated it somewhat a little bit too.
No. I kind of read it differently. I read it as, um, the ballet dance starts out with young Jake, that dancer representing young Jake.
Yeah.
And then the fight with the old janitor dancer is old Jake, and old Jake kills young Jake. So it's like, yeah, if the young Jake ballet dancer represents his potential, like what he's got all his future ahead of him, right? And then old Jake represents where he ended up. It's that self-loathing. He thinks he has failed. He thinks he's a failed person, that he had all this potential and that he did not bring any of it to bear on the world, and he ended up being not even recognizable or noticeable, outside of just maybe being that creepy janitor guy to a bunch of young people who all
No.
have their futures ahead of him.
And you
Right.
say that, and that brings forth a little bit more information, which kind of informs that, I guess, a little bit now that you kind of say that about the way that he felt about himself. Because I found it interesting that how many times he was shutting his parents down at the farmhouse when they would
Mhm.
compliment him or tell him
Well,
something, be like, "No, mom, don't say
yeah,
that."
yeah. My impression of the parents is those are the caricatures as he remembers them.
Yeah.
Right, like that's not his parents. That's literally his remembrances of his parents. Like one of really cool. I wrote it down in here. Um, so in the dinner table where he's reliving parts, he's basically, I think he's reliving parts of the conversations that he had with them that he kind of remembers about his parents. And uh, you know, his father is talking about how he doesn't like impressionist paintings. He likes paintings that look like real things that are, photograph like. And Jake's character goes, if you like paintings that are photographs, they're like, why not just take photographs? Which I'm pretty sure like that entire conversation was probably a real conversation he had with his dad, because he was a painter when he was younger. And he was doing impression. If you look at the paintings that he's done
In the basement
at the end of the movie, they're impressionistic.
Yeah.
They're the things that his dad would have said, oh, that's not real skill, just swiping some stuff on the paint, a la, Jackson Pollock. That's not talent. Talent is like, painting a scene that's just like a photo, right? So like that's him. He remembers this because it's an insecurity, right? His artwork wasn't something that his father admired.
I had to look up number 5, Jackson Pollock, really quick. Now I fully understand the swiping of brushstrokes here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
And the funny thing is that the painting that she shows on her phone to him as a picture is on his
wall.
His wall.
Or his portfolio thing.
Yeah, his portfolio thing. So yeah, it's that's why this movie is hard to watch the first time and so much more rewarding to watch the second time if you're engaged in it, because it's a really weird movie that makes references in and of itself, and also to the exterior world, to our world, that you kind of have to catch, and you can catch new things every time. Like, it's the second time I watched it, and it's like there are things sticking out to me now that it just didn't even come close to getting the first time I watched it.
I can, now that we're talking about it, I can see that where that would be a little bit more rewarding to see it that second time, and in knowing, okay, I understand this what's going on here in the metaphor and here now, and then be able to have your eyes opened a little bit more to see more of the surrounding scene of what's going on. Because honestly, it's so dense, it's so hard, it's so slow at times that sometimes it's hard to. I mean, it's hard to translate that in your mind.
Yeah, this is the type of movie that you kind of need a guidebook for. Like you almost like scene by scene, like what was it? There used to be, wasn't on like VH1 or something like that, like pop-up video where they do music videos, but then they pop up little things in the corner
and they say it's behind the scenes type stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This movie would probably really like, or maybe just have, maybe if we could just
a director's commentary.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Those please
pop-up
bring
video
those back.
style, that would be
please
awesome.
Bring those back.
Yeah,
pop-up video, they do a few some every once in a while still on VH1.
Yeah, I mean, if you take someone that is familiar, and I'm not, if you take someone that's familiar with the artwork referenced in the movie, including the musicals, especially Oklahoma, and all the characters in Oklahoma, because what I'm getting is that there's some, if you know the musical really well, there's a lot of really deep stuff in this movie, making parallels with characters in that musical. And I'm not a huge musical person, so it's like I am not getting any of that. Like I guess he associates himself with Judd from Oklahoma, which I guess Judd is the villain. So, again, that self-loathing that he has, even at the very end of the thing. If you know about movie criticism and kind of media studies, I'm getting that you would get a lot out of this movie that, like, people that don't do that type of stuff probably don't. There's not a whole lot there, for if you're not like steeped in this type of stuff.
Correct. I do like musicals, and I've still never seen Oklahoma. It's one of the very few that I haven't seen.
Right.
And stuff. When you're two guys in a house full of girls, you start to like musicals.
Sure.
But that's one of the few. I don't think, but I would be interested to see this one now. I really kind of do want to see this one now, and kind of I'm interested why that one was such a focal point. To be honest with you,
right?
It makes me really want to see it.
I think it was just it was Kaufman. I mean, it was Kaufman being Kaufman for one.
Yeah,
I mean
for sure.
that's kind of talked about.
Well, what was the point he was trying to make with it, though?
Well, no, I think it's just it's a callback to the beginning of the film. It's a tie-in to the end. It's kind of like, just this, everything's coming around in a circle again, but this time he's finally pulled the trigger, so to speak.
I think it might be a little deeper than that too. As far as the
It probably
as far as the connection with Oklahoma, I from the little bit of research I've done on this movie, it's like there are themes in Oklahoma, kind of under the surface themes about ending up with the right person and making the correct choices and
Oh, really?
choosing your best future.
Oh, wow.
It's not. Yeah, it's. I don't know. I don't know the musical very well to really speak about it. In
Interesting.
any authority.
That makes me want to watch it even more now.
Yeah. I don't. It's not a somber musical, so like these are just types of things that people have pulled out from it, maybe. But
Yeah,
definitely. I think that's kind of his, like the character's Jake's take on his life is that he would have been one of the heroes in the story, but he ends up being the villain. Like he ends up more like the villain, more useless, more making wrong choices.
Maybe
more
not even the
worthless.
villain. Like just he ends up being nothing in his own story.
Well, he sings the villain's song at the end of the movie.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So like even if he's not the villain, he sees himself as that. Like even if the villain's probably the wrong word, because I think even Judd in Oklahoma isn't like mustache twisting villain, but more along the lines of the bad guy.
Maybe it's a moral of at times we all feel that way sometimes. At times there's been points in my life that I've felt like I was the bad guy. It was maybe didn't intend to, but was.
But
but that was my personal look at myself. Maybe not everybody else was looking at it that way externally.
Well, this comes back to my theory about why I thought maybe John wouldn't empathize with the main character very much.
Okay.
And that's because John's younger, has a young family, has a lot of future things ahead of him. Not that we don't either, but if you're 70 years old, as you get older, you have, by the very nature of our knowledge that we will die, you have less things that you can change. You've made your decisions. And a huge part of this movie for me is this idea that he is reflecting upon all the decisions that he's made, and right or wrong, he thinks he's made the wrong decisions. That where he's ended up is a janitor at a school, that is unimportant. And so it's so heartbreaking when he's at the ice cream stand and that one girl who's obviously being bullied or anything like that, she's like, you're kind, and that that has to be enough, right? Like that has to be enough to think that your life has been worthwhile. And she's saying it to the lady character who is Jake, but the other part of his mind. And then the other Jake comes back and grabs her and kind of basically pays and drags her away. And so it's like one part of his mind recognizes that he's kind, but his kind of, I guess, momentum of his life and his self-loathing won't let him really believe that.
That's interesting. I wanted to talk about that because I thought it was interesting at the ice cream shop too, how he was, he had that one part of him that he's like, they won't talk to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to talk to him because they won't even look at me. And I'm like, and because I hadn't figured it out yet, I'm like, did he harm these girls in some way? Did he?
No,
I didn't get it at the time.
Yeah. He's the creepy janitor at the school that all the, the kids make fun of or behind the back, they know he's an adult and everything else like that, but he's not a teacher. He's not an administrator. He's the guy that cleans up all the messes and everything else like that. And you know how people think of janitors.
Yeah, I do.
They shouldn't think of them that way, but that's kind of a popular thing. And he knows it. This is his internalization of that. This entire scene is kind of his internalization of, those people whispering and giggling behind him as he walks past. Right.
Exactly. P.S. Shout out to all the janitors of my kids' schools. and stuff, how awesome they are. I know a few of
Those
them, and
places
they're
would fall
amazing
apart
people.
without them.
They're amazing people.
Yeah, like I don't know. You could go scene by scene in this movie and pick stuff out. That's the crazy part. That's why it's a if you're in the mindset and the mood, I think it can be a very enjoyable watch. If you are like, that's why the first time is so. I was so curious about it because like the first time is the hardest one, is the hardest watch because you don't have any you don't have things to look forward to because a lot of the, especially the beginning of this movie, are things that call to what's going to happen later, and you're making that connection early. So the first time you watch it, you have no idea if there's going to be a connection to that later. You don't even know what's important in these conversations and their interactions. You know.
I'll be honest, it spooked me a little bit when you asked me if when you challenged if I was going to like it or not. It did put a little bit in my head like, I wonder why he's even saying that. You know, like, why is he
maybe I primed the
challenging me?
pump too much.
This has got to be a movie along the lines of movies he knows that I am very much. It's a rarity when I do like something like this.
Yeah, I think the thing is like this would take a second or third watch and maybe a group watch
I could see that.
to have it come around to something that you might like, but at the same time, like you shouldn't have to do that just to like a movie, just to enjoy it. If
Though
that's
it
not
wouldn't be
really
the
what you're
first time in
into.
my life. There's lots of even comedic movies I've said before, even on this podcast, that I've watched and didn't like the first time, and then the second time, I watched it again by myself or with a group and loved it, and have loved it ever since.
Right.
I don't think this would be one of them, but but
Well, yeah, I mean,
but a
it's
second
possible.
watch would give me more understanding into the reasons of the story rather than the what the hell is going on thinking the whole time.
Yeah, well, for me, this kind of goes back to our watching of 2001: A Space Odyssey. This movie asks a lot of the audience. Um, and if you're not in the mood or even care about any of this stuff, I don't know how you would enjoy it.
I would say more. It was possibly a mood thing, a little bit of
It's
mood.
certainly possible. Yeah.
Um, I guess it's not the topics that that bother me in any way. I mean, I've watched a lot of different movies that are similar topics. The way that he presents them and the way that he is sliding them in metaphorically, and that's
Mhm.
where it gets really deep and stuff like that, where it's a hard first watch. You know, where your mind's reeling. That's the tough part of this movie. You know,
Yeah,
I
I think
think back at this movie again and watch it again. I don't. It definitely wouldn't be as tough to watch it a second time because I know what I'm expecting to see.
yeah, I mean, yeah. I can see that totally.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, all right. Anything else anybody wants to say? It sounds like we're starting to wind down a little bit. Was there any other topics you wanted to bring up, Crit?
Not really. I've got a ton of notes because it's just like pausing the movie every like 5 seconds and going, "Oh, that's a cool idea." Um,
I did like a lot of the hints that they did throughout. I mean, that's one thing that I did do. They did throw a lot of breadcrumbs.
yeah,
I mean, now that I look back on it, I didn't realize it at the time, but they did throw a lot of breadcrumbs to what was going on if you were paying attention. And I did
yeah.
key into some of it by the end. I wasn't totally lost
Well,
at
like,
the end. There was some key parts of like I didn't realize that she wasn't real or even a part of his life until I did more research on it. That she was
gotcha.
something that
Yeah.
didn't happen. You know,
See,
stuff like that I missed.
it's the storytelling and the kind of what would be in other movies considered throwaway lines.
Yeah,
You know that it's like if you're barely hanging on to the plot and trying to get the major aspects of what's going on, like you just miss all that. Like
I would agree with
you're
that.
just not noticing that. And one of the there's one real cool like sub story within this, which was the idea of, am I an original person or just the sum of the media that I consume? Right? Like it's like, are we just movies as viruses, that type of thing, where it's like, the things that you are talking about aren't really original, they're just other people's ideas that you're just regurgitating. And that actually comes up explicitly in the movie when he changes the false story from the beginning about how they met to be the same as the movie that he's watching in the classroom when he's eating dinner, right? And so
Yeah.
like he changes that story later on because I guess the remembrances are happening, in the morning while he's getting up and going to, going to his work and stuff like that. And then he's having dinner. So you have that kind of interlude about 3/4 in the movie. He's watching this movie. Then the movie is like full screen in front of us and we're watching the movie and we get to see all this thing. And this movie's very different from the in tone from the actual movie that we are watching, the audience. And then later on he reincorporates that as kind of the story that he's going to tell, this remembrance of his father about how they met. And he's back to like kind of contemplating this idea again of kind of committing suicide while he's still cleaning the school after school's over. So it's like it's just a cool, it's an idea that never really gets answered, but it's kind of interesting how it brings it up. It's like, how much of you is original and how much of you is the sum of the media that you've watched and listened to.
That is deep.
Hmm.
I'm going to say 50-50 on me.
50-50. Okay. I'm about 80. I'm probably about 90-10. I'm only about 10% original, maybe.
Maybe I'm being too bold.
Originality is overrated, right?
That's right. Or I would go 50% full of crap, 25% original, 25% movies. How about that?
Okay. All right, fair enough. Yeah, it's stuff like that that's in this movie. And if you listen close to some of the monologues and stuff like that, there's other things in there that are like interesting little ideas that never get answered. Just get like brought up and just kind of left alone. And yeah, I thought there's some really cool parts to that. And that's why I kind of like the movie. So, and I definitely enjoyed it more on the second watch than I did the first.
Did you? Okay.
Oh yeah.
That's good to know too.
I mean, it's not that different from, like I said, 2001: The Space Odyssey. I said in that podcast, first time I watched it, especially young, I didn't really get it, and I watched it that last time, and I was just like, this is actually really amazing. And it's actually, the more I think about that movie's more amazing because of what we've had to do here on the podcast, which is sit down and actually think about and talk about the movies and how they're made and what they're done and stuff like that. Like, none of us are movie people. We're just, regular audience, but still forcing yourself to kind of be more formal with it a little bit, and articulate your ideas on it, and then notice, how cinematography works and stuff like that, and how storytelling from a visual standpoint can work. Kind of brings out the more interesting aspects of those movies that are kind of appealing more towards movie makers and storytellers and stuff like that.
I'll be honest with you. If we hadn't had even this talk, I would agree with you on even 2001: Space Odyssey. I've always thought that it was a beautiful movie. I didn't understand every bit of it.
Right.
Thought little pieces and parts of it were kind of boring. Walking out of that, though, I had such, even though I already thought it was amazing, for the most part, I had such more of an appreciation for it now. And I'll be honest with you, even talking about this movie and diving deeper, my attitude is slightly, not a lot, but it has slightly changed in some aspects of
Fair
learning enough. Some of the ways that it hit you guys, and the way that you guys thought about it that was different from me, which I love that, because it does change your perception and makes you look at and appreciate things more for what they are than what you perceive them as originally.
Yeah, and I think 2001 gets more of a pass because it's sci-fi. It's just the visuals are just by the very definition of it being that more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But when you're talking to a smaller piece like this, a more intimate piece, it's definitely a little harder. It's not as easy to give a pass, but at the same time, understandable and easy. I think it's one of those ones that's got to be talked with. You've almost got to get with somebody and discuss it, or I don't know if you would fully understand it without knowing other people's ideas and thoughts.
Yeah, I think this movie by itself is not a. Well, we talked about previously, Josh and I, offline. We were talking about like how movies can kind of fall on a spectrum between roller coaster and art, like just kind of high art, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And our personalities fall somewhere on that line of what we would just like off the beginning. Like if a movie is a roller coaster, regardless of whether the story is good or bad, Josh is probably going to like it a lot, right? And
That's
if
true.
the story is art but not much of a roller coaster, Josh is probably not initially going to like it a lot. Now we can all grow to like movies that falls along that spectrum somewhere that's farther away from us, our personal likes and stuff like that. But yeah, this one is like very very much on the art side of that spectrum and not a roller coaster. There's not much spectacle, that type of thing. So
Yeah, I like movies that are introspective, but maybe have some spectacle to go along with them. Interstellar's one of those ones that there's a lot of there are some good thoughts and good ideas in that, but there's also spectacle. I like the interweaving of those two more, even though I will not completely shy away from a movie like this that is deeper thinking. I'm always interested that the more and more I watch them, the more and more I can understand them. And I'm always looking to expand my horizons, no matter if, initially I maybe didn't like it or not, or wasn't as interested in it, I should say.
yeah, fair enough. And
Because there's been a lot of movies you guys have introduced me to that I would have never watched, that I did actually find out that I did like them. And I was shocked that I liked them.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have other people in your life that are interested in the same subjects, but maybe on a different side of that spectrum on that subject.
I agree with that, because I would have never experienced all of Tarantino if I hadn't been with you guys. I was had gone as far as I felt like with Tarantino, and yet you guys, there's a lot of stuff there that I really like now. There's still a lot of stuff I don't, but
sure,
a lot more than I would have never watched, actually, that I really enjoy now.
Well, I certainly wouldn't have watched The Santa Claus if you hadn't had us do that. So.
Oh, don't even.
It's okay. It's good.
Yeah, I've got a funny.
That's all I got without going into like just individual scenes.
Without like totally dissecting it.
Yeah, that's not really worth doing. And I'm not the person to do it anyway. For that would take someone who's more familiar with all the references, I think.
Yeah. Okay, well, if we're at that, let's go into the ratings then. Johnny, what do you want to do? Your rating first?
Sure, I would probably not watch this with my mom.
Aw.
Mainly because I think I would be answering questions the whole movie.
Wait, you might be surprised. She might get it more than you do because she's
that's true.
She's a bit older. She probably has.
Wow, I'm gonna tell her you said that.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, you called my mom old.
You're like 16,
she told me she listens every once in a
like,
while when I met her.
She's probably like 27 or 28, right?
At least. I mean that might be a little high.
You think?
Because you've met her too, right?
I have not.
Oh, I thought you had. Okay.
Oh, haven't had the pleasure.
She's very nice.
I'm sure.
Chris,
despite knowing John.
Oh no, she's way nicer than John.
I'm sure she's nice. Yeah.
Way nicer than John.
Okay.
Just joking, John.
Yeah.
He believes me. I can tell.
All right, Josh,
I love you, John.
What's your rating?
What's that?
What's your rating, Josh?
Okay. My rating is 6 out of 10 Oreo blasts.
Okay. Like that's the thing that resonated with you in the movie. You're like, oh, hey, Blizzard.
No, I just had to pick out the funniest comment out of it. I was like, everything is like, anyway.
No, it's good.
I wouldn't own it, but I appreciate it. That's the other part of my rating.
Okay. I will give it 1 out of 1 ballet knife fights.
I like that one.
It's a great piece of
very high rating, man.
Art. Yeah, I think it's a great piece of film art. And I honestly, I'd have to be in the right mood. It'd have to probably be for like a revisit on the podcast or something similar to actually go back and watch, because it's not enjoyable in a relaxing way. It's a very heavy, anxiety-filled movie for sure. But I do know that when I ever go back and watch it again, that I'll even find more in there that'll be interesting to kind of chew on and think about. And I really appreciate movies that are able to do that, because there's not that many. There really isn't that many publicly available, that I feel do that as a movie.
I agree with that.
Anyway.
Yeah, when a movie clenches your butthole like as much as this one did, even though it was kind of slow going because of the tension.
All right.
I mean, at times I was just like, oh, I feel like, oh, what's going on here? Just
when
the
I
whole.
think that,
It almost had horror. Like I said, it almost had horror aspect
Well, some
feels
people
to it.
put
At
this
points.
in the horror catalog.
Really?
Yeah, like it's more suspense and stuff like that. But they kind
Yeah,
of
I wouldn't have put it totally in horror.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I think it's more of a thriller.
It's got some parts that maybe relate to it, but it's definitely a thriller, because thrillers are, I guess, horror movies without all of the nastiness, I guess. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, guys. You ready for my picks?
Ready.
All right. We're doing pirate movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I want to put something out there right now. Ice Pirates may or may not be in this list.
Oh, great. Now I'm going to be trying to sniff it out from the title. Is this revenge for making you watch this movie?
I just wanted to see your guys' buttholes like clench up a little bit,
Only at this part, yeah. Can we choose correctly?
Yeah. All right. You ready? Number 1.
Yep.
This movie is also meant for people that are left-handed. Number 2. This movie is so exciting it'll make you watch it through your fingers with one eye. Number 3, this movie calms you when you watch it.
The first one sounds pretty good.
I mean, unless he's baiting us, I think I know what the first one is.
I'm drawing blanks on most of them, so.
Okay, if you know what they are, then pick your best one.
Do I feel like if I'm right, do I feel like that was a good one to... Yeah, let's do number 1.
Okay. All right. John, you concur?
Yep.
John concurs. All right. Number 2. This movie is so exciting it'll make you watch it through your fingers with one eye. That is Goonies.
All right.
Because of what I'm Willie.
Yeah.
Number 3. This movie calms you when you watch it. Serenity.
Okay.
They're pirates.
Yeah, no,
they're space pirates.
Yeah, I'm not saying.
And number 1, this movie is also meant for people that are left-handed. What do you think it is, Crit?
I thought it was Princess Bride.
It is Princess Bride.
Yeah. Okay.
And stuff.
Yeah.
Dread Pirate Roberts.
Yep.
And stuff. And one of my favorite movies, and it does have a lot of like different stuff in it, which is why I like it so much. So that's my movie picks, guys.
Yeah, I picked one because I was like, if it's Princess Bride, which it tends to be, then I was like, it can't be Ice Pirates. There's no way he's gonna get that out.
Guys, I'm gonna be honest. I even told Juliana about us picking pirate movies, and I was like, I am not. Giselle came in here and she found out I was doing pirate movies. She's like, you're not going to torture them with ice pirates, are you? I'm like, no, I don't want them to kill me.
No, come on, we wouldn't kill you. We just, it'd be a short episode.
It would be a really short episode, and I don't want that. And these other ones they're funner movies, but there's still stuff to talk in there. And I think Princess Bride is actually the one you can talk about the most. I'm kind of glad you picked that one, actually.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, these are all great picks, man. Good job.
So, anyways, and then it leaves a lot of other ones, like deeper ones, for you guys later.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's true, but
anyways, well, guys, I think this was a good topic. I really enjoyed the conversation about this movie, even though I didn't enjoy it as much. I did enjoy the conversation about it quite a bit.
Yeah, me too.
And thanks for being on the podcast once again. And everybody out there listening, thank you for supporting us by listening to our channel and our podcast. And as always, may you be excellent to each other and live long and prosper from all of us here at Josh's House of Nerd. Have a good day and week. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. For more nerdy awesome Please like and subscribe and check out